Hello and welcome in. This is Take It to the Hizzy Fantasy Football TITTH number 220. I'm your host, Justin Bruni. I have a special guest in Devin McCoy of the Makeshift Managers podcast. Good afternoon and good morning to Devin. How are we doing, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Just Sunday morning, getting ready to talk sports.
Right on, right on. Any big plans for the rest of the weekend here?
Just going to relax. It's my 2 days off of the week, so taking some sports content, probably forecast a bit for tomorrow's show with Austin, but just try and relax, soak it in.
Cool. Good. Looking forward to the show for you guys tomorrow. Should be another solid one. Seen you guys have been cranking out your exposure. Glad to see the brand is growing. Good stuff.
Definitely.
My Sunday is going to be filled with watching basketball. It's the last week of one of my fantasy basketball leagues, and I'm trying to, make a last-minute push here for a nice little regular season payout, but one of my teams has fluttered from first to second. We're only paying out first in the reg season, so trying to make a little bit of extra money today. You guys can also find my props on Instagram. Take it to the Hizzy, sharing out the underdog picks recently. Those have been going off. However, I've missed about $900 across the past 2 days out of a total of 3 either points, rebounds, or assists. So while we've been making money, the past couple of days have been a little bit rough, but we're ready for a rebound. So, but we are here to talk some football news. Offseason is off and rolling here. We still got about 7 months until kickoff, but hey, what are we going to do in the meantime? Let's talk some ball. So we're going to just jump right in here. First up, we have the franchise tagging Davante Adams. Looks like the Packers may roll that one out from under their sleeves. They haven't used a franchise tag since 2010, actually, so it's not a common usage for them. Devin, do you think that using the franchise tag on Davante Adams is going to help or hurt the chances of Aaron Rodgers returning or re-signing him?
My thing with the Packers right now is Davante Adams is not going to commit to this team unless Aaron Rodgers is fully committed. So it's a necessary evil in a sense. Sure. If you want Aaron Rodgers on the roster, you're not going to get that done with Randall Cobb, MVS, and Alan Lazard as your 3 receivers. So Davante Adams is going to be the necessary evil at the tag price, regardless of which way you look at it. They've already shelled out money for Aaron Jones. A.J. Dillon is breathing down his neck. The only other viable weapon consistently for this team is Davante Adams. If you want Aaron Rodgers, he has to be there. And if you want to kind of be a little risk averse as the Packers front office, you just give him that big deal 1 year, keep him in-house. And then if Rodgers wants to commit more than this year, then you can extend him to a further deal. But in terms of them winning right now and keeping Matt LaFleur's coaching record in the high 700s of winning percentages, this is the move. They don't really have a choice. If they want to keep Aaron, Davante has to be there. If they want to keep Davante, Aaron has to be there. It's like a symbiotic relationship. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah, I agree. At least if you're the Packers, I mean, you might be willing to let Adams walk after Rodgers hangs up the cleats. But I don't think retirement is on the table here for Rodgers. Like, I know that's been kind of a narrative so far this early offseason. Like, well, still might just leave. The Packers haven't been treating him right. They're talking about tagging Adams, not just one of his teammates, but like one of his really good friends. And I feel like there's a little bit of chess play involved here because I think that the Packers are going to bet on Rodgers not letting Adams' career value hit the dumpsters, because if they do bring back Adams this coming season, whether it's under the tag or an extension, you're not going to see the same Davante Adams without Aaron Rodgers, like you mentioned. It's a symbiotic relationship. J-Lo, Jordan Love, he ain't going to do it. These free agents that are available, I'm not betting on them keeping Davante Adams' production at a tier 1 level. So yeah, I feel like they're betting on the fact like, we'll tag Adams and Rodgers is going to come back because Davante Adams is a very good friend of his and one of the best players he's played with, period. I don't think he's going to let him go into a season where he won't have leverage after that year. When he does hit the market after free agency, I don't feel like he's going to let Adams walk into that pool without anything or the numbers to back it up. So I do think that this will help pull in Rodgers, but it's definitely going to fracture the relationship with Adams. I don't see a holdout. Adams has mentioned before in the past that he's not a player that's going to hold out for a contract. So I do expect him to see him in camp, in training camp at least. I don't think, maybe the preseason workouts or like the or spring training camp or whatever they do, like the player voluntary workouts.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't see him at those, but I don't think Davante Adams needs to be at those regardless. But I do think this will help keep Rodgers and Adams around for another year. I mean, do you see the Packers as like a win now type of team?
I think they're arguably the most win now team in all of football. Just in terms of their roster construction, they don't have a whole lot of youth in the key spots. In my eyes, in football, you need quarterback, edge, corner, and some type of playmaker. Those are the most highly impactful parts of the game. You need someone to distribute the ball, someone to catch the ball, and someone to get to the quarterback, and someone that can possibly stop it. They have most of the pieces there. Zadarius and Preston Smith, they might be on the team moving forward. I've seen some stuff where they're probably going to have to buy out some of those guys due to contract details. But Jair Alexander's a top 3 corner in the game whenever fully healthy. They have a top 3 quarterback. They have a top 3 receiver. They have the recipe to be as good of a contender as the NFC has. And with Tampa Bay losing Tom Brady, that's one other juggernaut that's officially gone.
Right.
I think the biggest thing here is even if Rodgers wanted to move on, we've been talking about this for months. There's a number of teams that every team would love to have the services of Aaron Rodgers, but there's a select few teams that we believe actually have play in the situation. The biggest team that I've heard about as a Chargers fan, the Denver Broncos, getting Aaron Rodgers. I'd hate to see it. I don't think it's highly likely because what's better in Denver than what Aaron has in Green Bay? Green Bay has the better coach. He could go over to Denver and play with his old OC. I don't know what Eberflus is going to do out in Denver personally. And so, is it Eberflus out there?
Eberflus is HC of the Bears now.
Bears, okay. I forget the name of the coach over in Denver. Doesn't matter.
The guy that the Bears were trying to get, Luke, is it Getsy?
Yeah, I forget the name, but my biggest thing is, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, do I want to downgrade from a Davante Adams to the treasure trove of Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Cortland Sutton, and Tim Patrick? You got a quartet over there.
Solid group.
But it's relatively unproven at the scale of what Davante Adams can do. Because Davante Adams' production to this point, by itself, outnumbers all 4 of those guys basically put together. So Green Bay is his best chance to win.
I think what Denver has the most of is just depth in general. You know, if you do have one of those guys go down, you still have a whole sleuth of talent at each position. While I don't expect them to bring back Melvin Gordon or a guy like, Leonard Fournette, I do expect them to be active in the running back market. I could see them maybe try to target like a Raheem Mostert or just somebody that with some secondary usage that can come in and fill out some touches for Javonte, who I do see having a role increase there. But yeah, I just think they have the depth to offer any of these quarterbacks, whether it's an Aaron Rodgers or a Russell Wilson, back with the Packers. I think they are a win now team. I feel like Denver is also a win now team. They're just missing that piece. The Packers would be in the same situation if they were missing Adams or Rodgers here. So at least for sure you would get to keep at least one of them. But I just don't feel an available quarterback on the market, even if it's on the block, like a guy like Garoppolo or Wentz, like they're just not going to keep you in that same tier for making a playoff run or giving you that same type of upside to make a deep finish in the year, whether it's the second half or just making a run to the playoffs. So definitely need to use that tag to keep Rodgers, but it is going to fracture that relationship. I don't see Adams being there past next season at most. I
can agree. I think Adams' time in Green Bay is on a countdown, and hopefully he comes back. Hopefully Rodgers and him run it back. Because I think if I'm a Packers fan personally, I want to see Aaron get a second ring out in Green Bay. I think this coming year will probably be one of the best shots that he's going to have to win a Super Bowl moving forward. This team is ready-made for a Super Bowl run. They've gotten really unlucky with special teams play and just running into Kyle Shanahan, who seems to be the boogeyman in the greater part of the Green Bay area. At some point, it has to give. We saw it with the Rams against the Niners this postseason. A team can have your number, but it's really hard for a team to own you like the Niners have owned Green Bay so far.
Or like the Green Bay Packers have owned my Chicago Bears. Yeah, it's a little tough. I get it. I'm ready to see him go. That's for sure. Wouldn't be surprised if he comes back. The whole Aaron Rodgers versus the Packers saga has been pretty back and forth. Wound up staying with them this year. Could very well see the same thing. All right. Next up, we've got Raheem Masters. Raheem Masters' agent told NBC Sports Bay Area that he has been in touch with the 49ers about a reunion. This would be trouble. That's a lot of running backs. We've added Deebo Samuel into the wide back conversation. There's already been talk this early offseason that he would still be used in a similar role. You still have Trey Sermon there, Elijah Mitchell, potentially bringing back Raheem Mostert, potentially adding Trey Lance into the running game as well. I mean, can any of these running backs finish as an RB1 next season? And if so, who?
My biggest thing about the SF running back room, there's a really famous YouTube video called Too Many Cooks. The Niners have too many cooks in the kitchen at running back.
Sure.
For fantasy purposes, I never invest in the SF backfield unless it's like a late round flyer. I don't expect any of them to be a high end RB1. You'll have somebody that breaks through and will possibly be a league winner. Like Elijah Mitchell carried a lot of teams this previous year, and that backfield has the facilities to do that at any given year. But for what you're going to have to pay for one of their top running backs won't really be worth it due to the depth and just inconsistencies of Kyle Shanahan's coaching at running back. He's never married to any single guy. Trey Sermon was drafted in the second round, and he said, yeah, you know what? Just go ahead and grab some pine. Elijah's going to take a nap. And that's what it was. He elected to run Deebo Samuel into the ground effectively over giving Trey Sermon snaps. Do I think if there's any player in the effective RB room to have, Deebo Samuel's the guy in that offense now. I don't know if he gets the same shine at the running back spot next year if Mostert gets signed and he's back healthy because they have more depth and more serviceable depth. But if there's any player to have, and obviously he's not classified a running back, but if he's going to get the Cordell Patterson treatment, you want Deebo, and that's about it. You can go waiver wire for some of the other guys for an upside play, but I cannot really buy anybody besides Deebo in that offense, especially if Trey Lance is at quarterback, because he's going to take some rushing attempts. Mitchell's going to probably get a Lions share to begin, especially if Mostert doesn't come back. But they seem to be drafting dudes every other year that could start for half of the NFL's teams.
Right. I'm in on Elijah Mitchell. I'm very happy with the production that he gave me. He was someone that I drafted this year. That goes with an asterisk, because I drafted the entire backfield. That's
the one strategy I can say.
It's like, you don't take one, you take all three, So I had Mostert, Sermon, and Mitchell on a roster, and the draft order that I took them went Sermon, Mostert, Mitchell, pretty much the whole narrative of last season. And I enjoyed the fruits of those picks, right? So while Mostert was in, not very long, he got me a little bit of production. Sermon I had there as a handcuff. I think I actually had him in the week, not on that same team, but on another team where he actually scored a touchdown last season, just like a super deep format. But I like Mitchell, man. 11 games last season, was a little bit banged up, but he had over 1,100 total yards as a rookie. In fantasy scoring, standard, he was a 13-point per game player, half point 14, full point 15. Like, this is very desirable production. I think, if anything, if they did sign Mostert, it would signal that there would be less, quote unquote, wide back usage, where Deebo would kind of revert back to a more formidable receiver, and they would still mix him in. Like, they just wouldn't give him 15 carries a game type of crazy production. Like, I just don't think that that's necessary. And if you have guys that are willing to take those hits up the middle, like Raheem Masters at the age of 30, why not give them to him rather than running Deebo on inside zone runs where he's going to get demolished by not, one corner, but three linebackers and, maybe a defensive end, like, let's take care of some of these guys. So honestly, like, I'm not worried about any of this. Like, if they sign a guy like Mostert, a guy like Marlon Mack, I mean, if they sign Leonard Fournette, I'm going to be a little bit worried about Elijah Mitchell for sure. Even Ronald Jones, I would, not a big fan of his, but I think that there could be some trouble here. But these type of like back end tier RBs, like, I'm not worried about Raheem Mostert coming in and taking a job from Elijah Mitchell. I'm not worried about Trey Sermon doing it. The only thing I'm worried about is touchdown progression. Like, I like all these numbers to go up. He had 6 total touchdowns this season, had a great amount of red zone usage. Like, he has that build, like that mold to be used down low on the goal line. Have to love that. But that's where I'm getting to, is the goal line. That's really all I'm worried about. Is if Trey Lance is the starter here, I could see him taking away some of those red zone touches. But 1,100 yards total, that number's going up. The catches, not really that many. I think he had less than 20. Those are going to be going up. 226 total touches. Those are going to be going up. Had 4.7 yards a run. Like, I really can't hate on Elijah Mitchell. Guys, if you keep seeing this news out there, trying to bait the signals to sell Mitchell, I'm buying. When I see the fire, I'm running in. Give me some action there for Elijah Mitchell. All right, next up we've got Russell Wilson. They're talking about him potentially staying here. Seahawks versus the field. What do you think, Devin?
Seahawks. The asking price for a Russell Wilson is going to be far too high for any competitive team to actually bite on it. There's a lot of teams like the Rodgers thing. Any team can use the services of Russell Wilson. I think he didn't do himself many favors last season. Before the injury, he was great. He was Russell Wilson. Injures the finger. Geno Smith comes in. Seattle's on fire for like 5 weeks. Comes back, does not look the same. Russ's back end of last year was not letting Russ cook. It was looking like Russ is cooked for the better part of the back end of last year. And if you were a DK Metcalf manager last year, like I was, you understand that Russ was definitely not cooking in the back half of the year. I don't think he leaves. If he were to go somewhere, I think the best fits for him, obviously Denver's cool because it's ready-made. They need a quarterback. They have weapons. They have depth on defense.
Yeah.
Maybe the Commanders, if they were able to move some pieces. I would love to see Terry McLaurin get an actual quarterback for once in his career. I don't know. Pittsburgh, for me, is like one of the destinations where I think any veteran quarterback would want to go with coaching. They just brought in Brian Flores. And for all of the what's what I'm looking for? All the negativity around that locker room, at least in the receiver room, they're one of the most talented groups in football with Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Chase Claypool. For all
Juju
the stuff,
Juju a free agent.
But Juju's going to come off that injury. I don't know what his market looks like, and if he took a prove-it deal last year, I don't see why he doesn't maybe take a 2-year cheaper option with Pittsburgh to kind of reestablish himself off of that injury. So we'll have to see with Juju. But even then, they have James Washington, Ray McLeod. They have depth, and they have a lot of good receiving talent. They also have Pat Freiermuth at tight end. It's a very good skill group of guys. And then Najee Harris as well. Their defense isn't top tier, but they have top tier talent at the most important spots, and they can improve throughout the draft. The offensive line is the biggest issue in Pittsburgh. But if Russ were to go anywhere, I think his best fit is probably a Pittsburgh or maybe a team like the Commanders, because I don't think the Broncos move for anyone aside from Aaron Rodgers. But just with how he performed last year at the back end, I don't think Seattle can command what they want for a deal for Russ.
Right. No, I agree with you. I think the majority of the percentage here is that he's going to stay in Seattle. If there was a move to be made, excuse me, I could see a very similar trade on the table that we saw this past offseason between the Rams and the Lions, Matthew Stafford for Jared Goff. Yeah. I like the idea of a Carson Wentz, Russ Wilson trade. I get that kind of vibe, those Rams Lions vibes from that type of move. Now, the Colts don't have a first-round pick to offer this season. They traded that away to the Eagles for Carson Wentz. So what I could see on the table is potentially Carson Wentz, a first for next year, and Seattle's pick, third or fourth this season. I don't know if the Colts would give up that second pick, but do you think that would be enough? A first next season, a third this year, and Carson Wentz for Russ Wilson, and I don't know, compensatory pick, fourth, fifth, something else on the side.
For the biggest thing is Russ has been the biggest thing to Seattle since I don't want to say Griffey, but it feels like Griffey or Ichiro. Like the city of Seattle loves Russell Wilson.
No,
he's been the biggest athlete they've had.
He's an icon.
Past decade. Exactly. Yeah. And if we're talking about the deal they passed on last offseason that the Bears offered them, I think it was like Roquan Smith and 3 first-round picks, and I believe a cornerback. It was something ungodly compared to what was just offered. I get because the Lions are in a far worse but more advantageous situation than Seattle is right now. Detroit owns their picks. Detroit has been bad for the last 15 years, give or take. And
they also collected a whole horde of picks on the
and Jared Goff,
not on the Wentz, but the Goff move.
And with Jared Goff, because I have more faith in Jared Goff moving forward than I do with Carson Wentz. And Carson Wentz, I see a broken quarterback. Point blank. The thing with Jared Goff is he didn't really have a terrible year last year. Detroit is a cesspool in terms of talent. They have DeAndre Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and a bunch of guys. Jamal Williams is great. Love that guy. Great personality. But Detroit is rebuilding.
Hawkinson when healthy?
When healthy is the biggest thing. The best ability is availability. I think for all of Goff's faults, he has a track record of putting up stats and being able to win games. We're 3 years removed from the Mexico City game where he outdueled Patrick Mahomes. I get it. LA's a completely different situation.
Bus driver,
but you still have to make the throws. And from what I've seen from Carson Wentz, he's closer to Jimmy G than Jared Goff is. I just don't trust Carson Wentz to be able to lead a competent NFL offense when it matters most. And I think while Goff is not my first choice at quarterback, I don't know if he's younger, but I just think he's more confident, less injury prone, and I just think he's better off moving forward. Carson's already blown his knee out. Carson's already been maligned by 2 franchises. And if he gets shipped to Seattle, this is his 3rd team in 3 years. That's about as scarlet of an A as you can put on the quarterback in my eyes. Love Carson. He's probably a great guy, but
we're gonna be ranking some of these available quarterbacks here, so we'll definitely get back to that Wentz talk. The reason why I like that transition for Seattle is that the teams that need a quarterback that are actively looking, this is one of the options that they can actually get a quarterback in return.
Yeah,
it's not like you're actually going to roll with Geno Smith as a starter. Wentz was in a good situation this season. Like, he was in a much better situation than he was in years past. And he blew it down the stretch, but he also was available in every game this season. Russell Wilson was not. Now, obviously there's a lot of factors that come into play there. Like, it's not just your fault because you get hurt or you're not healthy. Right. I just feel like he would be one of those bridge quarterback opportunities that you could leverage this offseason, where you're not going to get that back from Pittsburgh. You're not going to get that back from the Commanders, because if you do that, if you make one of those moves with the Steelers or DC or even Tampa Bay, they've been throwing their head into the ring. You're only getting back starters. And I don't know what you're going to actually get back for Russell Wilson as far as like a player comp evaluation. Like, you can, if they throw Chase Young on the table, they may say, yeah, that's not enough. All right, we'll throw out Chase Young and a couple of picks. Like, well, you know what? That's not enough. We actually passed on Roquan Smith, like you said last year.
Yeah.
We're going to need 3. Like, I don't know if that's going to be the match that's going to actually send Russ out of Seattle. I feel like a bridge quarterback option, that could be the way to actually, like, all right, we're getting a guy back. We can still be somewhat competitive next season. Maybe sell some tickets. Definitely less with Russ not there, but we can still have a productive year while we search for our next guy. We'll have another extra first-round pick next season. Would you rather do that and search out for one of these free agent like quarterbacks? Like, I could see Marcus Mariota there as a starter, but I feel like that's just a couple of tiers ahead of Geno Smith. You know what I mean?
My biggest thing, keeping it in the theme of the Pacific Northwest, there's 2 things in the NFL or any professional sport. There's winning and losing. Any year you're not a Super Bowl champion, you're a loser. And yeah, it looks better optically if you lose in the Super Bowl or you make the playoffs. The Seahawks under current construction are the 3rd or 4th best team in the NFC West, even with Russell Wilson.
I agree.
At some point, you have to look in the mirror and understand that this is the point. This is their crossroads. We saw it with the Portland Trail Blazers. They moved off of CJ, and they basically cleaned house. They have like Nurkic, Simons, Josh Hart, Dame, and some draft picks moving forward.
Like
Josh
Hart.
Little.
Let's go, Josh
Hart. I love Josh Hart, LA Laker fan, so I love Josh Hart. But the big thing here is they kind of need to let go. If you're not going to move Russ this year, when are you going to move him? And they're going to be caught in this cyclical cycle of just rehashing the same shit that doesn't work. LA's better. The Niners are better. And the Cardinals are rising, even with Cliff Kingsbury, who I cannot stand. It's time. Legion of Boom has been dead for the last 5 years. Jamal Adams is one of the most overpaid players at his position due to production and how the defense actually performs. Great player, terrible fit for their scheme. Yeah, you got to just kind of look in the mirror. They should flip Russ for as many assets as possible, but I don't think the bridge quarterback will be the biggest thing for me because they're not looking to win, and they shouldn't be looking to win because if you keep trying to win, you're going to waste any upside of what Russ or a Jamal Adams will bring you in the trade market. Because you look at the Lions, they said, you know what, we're not going to do anything with Stafford. Let's bring in Goff and all these draft picks. And they performed better than we expected them to. I'm not saying Seattle's 3 or 4 years away without Russ, but if they keep Russ, they're 4 to 5 years away once he finally retires. It's the way the game works. If you're not willing to suck for a bit, it's going to be a lot harder to get good.
No, I agree. If they are going to keep Russ, I would like to see them make some moves that support winning now, right? Go out and get an offensive lineman. Go out and try to make a trade for like a Calvin Ridley, who has a very affordable contract, because like you mentioned, being behind in that division, it's on offense. Like their defense isn't great, but they still have a couple of playmakers at least, but their offense isn't doing anything. Jimmy Garoppolo threw for more passing yards last season than Russell Wilson did. Russell Wilson, Carson Wentz threw for more yards, had more volume. Like, I would like to see Russ in an opportunity where he can throw for over 500 times. Yeah, he missed 3 games last season, but he still finished with, 400 passing attempts. Like that's not enough for me. Not running the ball enough, like trusting these running backs too much. Like to me, they're behind on offense. Like in this NFL, like you mentioned, like Jared Goff went over the top of Patrick Mahomes a couple of years back in Mexico City for like 50 total points or 56 total points or something crazy like that. Like
it's insane.
He's not great. He's not great. You just need a good system and you need good players surrounding you. So yeah, if Russ is going to stay, they need to make those win now type of moves. And you still have Pete Carroll there. I feel like he has always kind of had like 1 foot half in and out the door the past couple of seasons. So very interesting situation up there. It sounds like we both like him to stay.
Oh, I love Russ staying. I think the biggest question Seattle needs to answer, at least going into next year and moving forward, Pete Carroll. If there's any question about who versus the field, Pete Carroll over the next 2 years, I think he's going to be the guy that has to go. He's had all this time. He has not adapted, and he's failed to actually develop Russ into a dominant passer in the way that he can lead this team. If you want to win games in Seattle, Russ has to cook 100% of the time. And
I just think the play calling is really bland. The play calling is really bland. It's not serving the strengths of the offense. It's not serving, overworking Metcalf, overworking Lockett, and, putting Russ in situations where he has the ability to have, multiple options, whether it's, working him into the play action or just, trick design plays or anything like that. Like you just don't really see that out of Seattle anymore. Yeah. I don't feel like they're leveraging their talent the best that they can.
100%.
All right, next up here we've got Dawson Knox making some news. The Athletics' Joe Buscaglia said he's not to be surprised if Dawson Knox stats go up in 2022. I can't disagree with him. Right now, Fantasy Pros has him ranked as tight end 9 in Dynasty. So, Devin, I'm going to ask you to, either or tight end, going through the guys from like 8 to 5. So, Dawson Knox versus Pat Freiermuth. Who would you rather have long term right now?
Dawson Knox. He has a better quarterback.
We have no idea who the Pittsburgh quarterback would be. I agree. Exactly. So that would move him to number 8. Dallas Goddard at number 7. Would you rather have him or Dawson Knox?
Right now, Dawson Knox.
I agree. So we move him down to number 7. Now it gets a little bit thick. Now it gets a little bit tricky. So again, this is Dynasty. So Waller is at number 6. Would you have Darren Waller or Dawson Knox?
So how old's Waller right now? He's like almost 28, 29, I think.
29, I believe.
And Dawson Knox is probably 26 at the current moment of recording.
You're asking tough questions, Devin.
Let me see. I'll Google that one. I got a keyboard. Dawson Knox age. So let's
25.
He's 25. Okay, so 25. You're getting 4 more years. Josh Allen is inked completely. If Dawson Knox were, as of right now, I will take Dawson Knox. Darren Waller was injury prone last year. He has a higher ceiling, but Josh Allen is infinitely better than Derek Carr. And who knows if Derek Carr is going to be with the Raiders long term. I don't know what Darren Waller's doing moving forward, especially with Hunter Renfrow out there. They're going to lose Emmanuel Sanders in Buffalo, and Gabriel Davis is great. Hopefully he can pan out, but as of right now, he's probably the 2 option for Josh Allen until Davis can actually cement himself.
Yeah. So I will still keep Waller over ahead of Knox, and that's just on pure upside. Like if they don't go out and get another receiver, Waller should still be one of those top guys for them. He was also hurt this year, so the numbers were a little bit down. That's with Knox, I agree with you. You're losing Manny Sanders. Most likely, it seems like there's a home run for him to either retire or, I don't know, go sit on somebody's bench and practically be a player coach type of situation. So yeah, I agree. Knox would definitely be the next man up, but I also think that they'll probably go out and get somebody. So I'm going to keep Waller just ahead of him. But the next guy I think is pretty close. In number 5, they have T.J. Hawkinson. So T.J. Hawkinson or Dawson Knox.
This one's tough. I love Hawk. I had him in a league this year. It was frustrating.
Of course, yeah.
Even though he was injured a lot of the time, whenever he was playing, he was Jared Goff's safety valve in a way that I think a lot of tight ends would love to be in the NFL.
Sure.
Hawk's even younger, and Goff isn't going to be the guy there forever in Detroit. But unless they bring in a receiver, I like Hawk more than a guy like Dawson Knox. He's younger. If he can stay healthy, I think he has a higher target capacity, probably scores more touchdowns. His only real competition for targets will be St. Brown and Swift, unless they draft a high-end talent in the draft. And Knox is still competing with Stephon Diggs. I give Allen the edge over Goff, but Goff loves tight ends, and he loves TJ Hawkinson from what we've seen whenever he's on the field. So Dawson can elevate and be better than him next year, but as of right now, I'd take TJ moving forward.
I got you. So yeah, we're a little mixed up there. I would have Knox at 6 behind Pitts, Andrews, Kelsey, Kittle, and Waller. So you would have them pretty much about 6 or 7, just the same. Or no, you'd have them at 6 too, because you'd have Waller behind him. So pretty close to the top 5. I mean, this is someone that's getting drafted. I'm in a slow draft right now for a startup. I got Dawson Knox in the 10th round.
That's great value.
And I didn't over push on like any of my positions. So it's a super flex league. I have all my starters. I didn't like draft my 3rd quarterback before a tight end or anything like that, or get really cute. I filling out all my flex, all my starters, and Dawson Knox was the last guy that I grabbed. So I really love that value as well. I drafted him ahead of Noah Fant and behind Dalton Schultz. So kind of wedged in between that value between the 9th and 10th round. I was at the end of the selection. I was pick 11. So I do think he's going to be teetering on that top 5 tight end performance level this upcoming season. It really just depends on what the Bills will add. But I feel like, this is someone that's going to score a lot of touchdowns. He had 9 in this season, and there was only twice this season where he had back-to-back games where he didn't score a touchdown. He had multiple touchdown games in 2 of the games this season. I think that red zone usage is going to be all of Dawson Knox, because you know what Detroit has that the Bills don't? A running game.
Yeah.
I'm not scared. I'm not scared of either of those running backs when we get down to the goal line. I'm worried about if Dawson Knox is going to score a touchdown if I'm the other team. You know what I mean?
That brings to the question for me, if Buffalo finally bites the bullet and tries to bring a running back in. It's the one thing they've been missing.
They should.
But will they is the question. I'm not entirely sold on it.
Right. Leonard Fournette was that guy last offseason. I did an article for like free agent running backs, and the Bills were the name that I put down for him. So I'd like to potentially see that again. I could also see him maybe even going to a team like the Jets, who I still feel like need like a really reliable guy. So I could see Leonard Fournette in any sort of color in New York, to be honest, especially if the Giants are willing to move on from Barkley somehow, create some crazy nonsense like that. So
I think
it sounds like we're.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, sounds like we're both in on Knox, like really close to that top 5 range. The age, the opportunity, and just his team, like he fits really well into their system, and he doesn't really have any competition at the position either. Like Tommy Sweeney, I don't think we're worried about that.
Yeah, because my thing with
Quinton Morris, I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, it's a lot of filler. It's a lot of filler. But with Buffalo, I think a sneaky name for them in terms of free agent running backs, because Arizona has to make a decision on who they're going to keep. They have Edmonds and Connor coming off of contracts. I think if Buffalo could get either of those guys in-house, I think that would be an upgrade on what they have currently. They relegated Zach Moss to the Shadow Realm this season. I was high on him going into the year, and they said, you know what, Zach? Go ahead and just warm up the bench because we don't need you.
Down.
Like Matt Breida. I was on your podcast last time. Matt Breida. That was the hot topic of that show. It's I don't know what's going on in Buffalo. And I don't like Devin Singletary. He's coming off his rookie scale deal this year. I don't know why they would bring him back. He was good, but it's not inspiring to the point where you want to give him money.
He was good at the finish of the year because they actually used him. They prioritized him. They could have did that at any certain point of the season, and things probably would have been a lot better. That was very confusing to me, that usage. And I think the butt of the joke is always, oh, well, Josh Allen is the QB or the RB1. He's the guy that's going to run the ball. And it's that's not going to do much. You know what I mean? If you watch that game with the Chiefs, who did they need? They needed people to catch the ball, not run the ball. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I feel like that still could be their narrative this offseason is how do we beat the Chiefs? How do we beat the Chiefs? And it's probably not going to be with a running game. I still think that they could be in that pool for guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, guys like Jamison Crowder, Allen Robinson, guys that may have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. Now, maybe not like the Devontae Adams or the Chris Godwins, but, someone like these, second
good value receivers. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then
exactly.
If the Bills are looking to beat the Chiefs, if you look on NFL Twitter, they just got to start practicing thetheir probabilities. They had a 50-50 shot to win that coin toss. So, Josh, I tweeted out after the game, I'm like, tails never fails unless you're Josh Allen. It's tough, but
Or it's a Super Bowl. I got heads on that prop, baby. Heads.
But it's just, I'm interested to see what happens. Dawson Knox, he's trending up for me. I'm not in any dynasty leagues currently. I'm probably going to start one up this year, but I wouldn't take more than 5 guys over him currently in terms of just age, use, and projecting forward with overall talent around them.
Very good situation for sure. Let's see. Wes Phillips of the Minnesota Vikings has gone on record saying that the team would not be forcing the run game in this upcoming season. They're going to look to balance out the attack. They led the league apparently in second and long rushing attempts, and overall Zimmer was just very heavy on the run, leaning in on Dalvin Cook. Is this time for Dalvin Cook owners to panic?
No. Like, we're not going to get cute here. Dalvin Cook, when healthy, is a top 3 running back in football. You could argue top 5 at the back end. You're not going to look at this guy, even with the new head coach. Like, yeah, you have Justin Jefferson, you have Adam Thielen. Dalvin Cook is he's number 1 in that offense for a reason. Like, Justin Jefferson is 1B, if you want to put it that way. But I think it would be a little dumb to try and reinvent the wheel. You're not going to see the Mikey Z sphere of influence where Dalvin Cook's going to put up 30 carries for 200 yards and 3 scores, but he's going to be an RB1. You're not going to get this insane volume that Mike Zimmer allowed Dalvin Cook to have. I don't think that's a problem. I think so. The Vikings picked up the Rams coordinator offensively for their head coach spot, right? That's what they ended
I know Wes Phillips is the offensive coordinator. I don't remember who they hired as the HC.
Okay. Well, they revamped the entire staff from what it looks like. I'm looking forward to the Vikings, and I think they're going to pass the ball a bit more or try to be more efficient in the passing game. Kirk Cousins, for all of his faults, is a good NFL quarterback. He's going to put up stats. He's not going to win primetime games, usually, according to his track record, but he's good enough to win games. And if Aaron Rodgers leaves the NFC North, the Vikings should theoretically be the front runners. So you don't expect Dalvin Cook to be the number 1 running back in all of fantasy, but don't go panic selling him because there's a new head coach and they're going to pass the ball more. That's like, go ahead.
I was going to say, I hope there's panic selling. I want to panic buy. Like
100%. If you want to give me Dalvin Cook for quarters on the dollar, I will gladly take him off of your hands. But if I'm a Dalvin Cook manager, I see no reason to panic until you're given a reason. If they start rushing Alexander Madison out there as like a true compliment, like the AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones saga from this year, I just don't see it happening. Dalvin Cook is a premier talent at the position, and until given actual evidence that it's no longer the case, hold. Unless you can get an absolute crazy package for him.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. You would need one of those like young running backs in there in a trade.
Somebody
for sure.
Wants to overpay for Dalvin Cook in this era of uncertainty. Go ahead and do it, but don't take anything less than his true value. It would make sense.
And multiple first-round picks in your drafts for sure. I mean, like you'd have to get back a serious haul. He's still 26 years old. He may have already played for 4 years, but they've been 4 great years. He did have a little bit of a dip this season, but what your point to less opportunities for Madison, that's where I'm running with. Like, if you don't run Dalvin Cook into the ground 30 times a game, well, that means that he doesn't necessarily have to come off the field as often as he is. And that may also preserve his health. He may play an actual 17-game season if he's not being overused. It also opens up more opportunities in the passing game. He can still catch and run with the ball. So I think that this would, if anything, would give him more upside. Anyone that's selling, I'm buying for sure. Give it to me all day. This startup that I'm doing, he didn't go until the 3rd round. The back end of the 3rd round. So players drafted ahead of him: Joe Mixon, Javonte Williams, DeAndre Swift, Christian McCaffrey, who I did take. Top running back, right? But I took the 3rd running back off the board. You saw guys like Najee Harris and Jonathan Taylor, usurp these guys because they're young. They have the wheels. They have all the opportunity, right? But Dalvin Cook getting wedged in between Joe Mixon and J.K. Dobbins, I'm not necessarily with it. I also forgot to mention Austin Eckler, who was ahead of Mixon. But regardless, I still think like that's a little bit steep right now. And just a consistent overreaction to drafting age in Dynasty. Like, it's, yes, of course, young players should be prioritized. Young players that are producing at the same rate as someone of Dalvin Cook, yes, they should probably be drafted, slightly ahead of him. But this dude's got miles upon miles still left in the tank. He had the most 20-plus yard runs he did all of his career this season. He had 9+ this year. Like, still has a lot left in the tank. his touches did go down a little bit to 280, just under 300 this season. I expect him still to be over 275 touches for this season and the next season. And in Dynasty, I play in 2 and 3 year windows. That's perfectly fine for me. If I see him on the field and he's like just not doing Dalvin Cook things, then sure, maybe that's the case. But someone merely saying like, oh, well, we're going to balance it out and not run Dalvin Cook as much, that's not enough for me. I mean, for all we know, this is just coach talk. They could come back and give him 30 rushes a game. We have no idea, But to panic sell, not something I want to do this offseason is dump Dalvin Cook. That's for certain. Definitely more of a buy or hold candidate for me.
100%. If you're selling Dalvin Cook, something is going on. And if you need help, just reach out because he's the guy in Minnesota. And to your point, I think if they're going to even it out and kind of disperse the offense a bit more, I think it only benefits Dalvin. His biggest problem for me, and I've never drafted Dalvin Cook in any of my leagues because I draft in redraft leagues for the most part. I'm in one keeper league with 2 keepers, and Austin's team had Dalvin Cook to keep. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to see that dude in the pool for the next 5 years.
Right.
But
yeah.
my biggest thing with him is just in redrafts, it's looking at him as I love what he does and the span of games that he plays, but I've never really been confident in him playing the full slate of games. This gives me more confidence in the fact that he can stay on the field for 17 games.
Agreed. So this season he played 13, and the last 2 seasons he played 14. So he only missed 2 games last 2 seasons. He missed 4 this season. So obviously not ideal.
He's not super injury prone, but it's just I look at the numbers and I'm like, if I can get 17, I'll get 17.
When you're constantly running into walls of linebackers and defensive ends, like we've just said, 25, 30 plus times a game, like that's going to happen. You're going to take the wear and tear of the miles you're putting on. These aren't straight and narrow roads we're driving on here with Dalvin Cook. These are bumpy up and down hills, baby. It ain't easy.
And take my Dalvin Cook takes with a grain of salt. This is coming from a guy that had the first overall pick 2 years in the same league and took CMC both years. So I got third place both years taking CMC first. So I'll take it. But
did you get any Chuba?
No, in that league I didn't.
I'm getting into Chuba territory because I drafted CMC. So my pick is up and we're at 11-4 and I'm at 11-11. So I'm considering
for sure.
I'm considering taking it, but man, might still need another receiver. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right, moving on here. We're looking at Chris Godwin and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs are hopeful to sign Godwin for a long-term deal. What do you think Godwin should do here? I mean, we don't have a quarterback situation settled yet. Do they sit him down and say, hey, we're trying to bring back Winston for you. Let's ink this long-term deal. Should he wait and see? Is the market just plain better than Tampa Bay right now? What do you think he should do, Devin?
Looking at the cap space. So there are just looking at the top 10 teams in terms of overall cap space as of right now before restructuring and all that stuff in the draft. Miami, the Chargers, Jacksonville, Cincinnati, Jets, Broncos, Colts, Seahawks, Commanders, Steelers. We're going to eliminate
Browns are in there too.
Yeah, the Browns. And so let's just take a look and see. Unless teams are offering more than what Tampa Bay can pay him, I think Godwin's smarter to stay in Tampa Bay because if he can just ink his money and stay there, it's probably his best bet. He's had the track record and the rapport in the system. He knows that he can produce in that offensive scheme. If Bruce Arians is 1 foot in, 1 foot out after Brady's retirement, that changes the whole context of what's going on with Godwin. But I don't see Miami shelling out money to get him. I think the Chargers would be a little off base to throw money at Chris Godwin. The Jaguars would love him. I think Jacksonville is a spot where Godwin could go, and I think the quarterback is inspiring enough for Godwin to want to play there. Cincy, they have too many cooks in the kitchen already with the 3-headed monster there. There's no room for Godwin. The Jets are interesting. I'm not sold on Zach Wilson. Denver has 4 receivers already. The Colts, I don't want to sign on somewhere where Carson Wentz is my best bet moving forward unless they can bring a guy like Russ in. So I need to see what's going on. Seattle's cool.
The Colts are all in on replacing Wentz. Like that's like their top priority is getting an upgraded quarterback. So
which will be great, but I just seeing is believing for me. And I think I just don't know who takes on Carson Wentz. I think he's more likely to be cut than traded at the end of the day. It's tough, but the money they would save in relief by cutting him on that cap hit would be immense.
They gotta try. They gotta try, man. They give up a first-round pick this year for him. They gotta do something.
They can't cut him. It's optically terrible. Cleveland, I don't like Baker Mayfield. I don't think if Godwin wants to turn into Odell Beckham 2.0, go ahead and go to Cleveland. You'll see how it pans out. Jarvis Landry has already been penning his letters to the public. Cleveland's not where any receiver wants to go, but on the back end, Chicago could be cool. Justin Fields has shown sparks in his limited time out in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the Raiders have the money to get a Chris Godwin. If they restructured and they found some more cap space.
Well, let's pump there, because the Raiders are on my list, and they're at about 19 million. So they would probably have to do some restructuring.
Yeah.
But I feel like they could still bring him in. Mm-hmm. I like him as a complement to Renfrow and Waller in Josh McDaniel's system. I feel like being able to attract a lot of attention to the middle of the field with Waller, and then letting Godwin and Renfrow do what they do on the outside, whether they're screaming down the sidelines, using their footwork for better position just to get open. Like what those two can do with their feet is absolutely amazing. I mean, they could be, tap dancers, let alone football players. So I like that fit there, but there would need to be some finagling in the cap. They're in the top half of the league for cap space. They have 19 million, but when you look at teams the Jets have a ton of cap, but I don't see them going to the Jets. The Jaguars you mentioned are interesting because they do need to supplant DJ Shark, who's available. Mm-hmm. Not a name that hasn't really been consistent so far this offseason. I'm sure we'll start to get some news on him. So that's interesting to me, but Peterson, Lawrence, Godwin, does that math add up? I'm not sure. I feel like maybe there's like a position coach there. If they had a little bit of relationship with them, maybe they could pull that off. But if not, I don't know if I see it. The Seahawks are a name that I keep coming back to just because I feel their offense is weak. They need to do something. They needed to throw somebody in there to just give them kind of a surge, whether it's Godwin or Ridley. And then the other team who doesn't have the cap space is Arizona Cardinals. I would love to see them find some way to get him on the roster, because they're going to lose Christian Kirk, and who is the other one?
AJ Green,
not Hopkins. AJ Green and Christian Kirk. They're going to need a secondary target alongside Hopkins, and I feel like that's a very friendly move to make for Kyler Murray. This is a quarterback that's not very happy right now, but also at the same time he wants an extension. I feel like a move like that, if we can't give Kyler the money that he wants right now, we can at least spend it on somebody that's going to make him happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
So those were the two names that I had down, were the Cards and the Raiders. I think that money-wise, a lot of those options that you brought up make sense, if they want to spend on them. But like you said, you might have too many cooks in the kitchen, or they may not have the actual pieces that you need. Like the Colts, they have the money, but not the quarterback. Seattle, they have the money, but maybe, one too many receivers there. Godwin may not like that. I think it would be a good mix. The Jets, not a great landing spot. The Broncos, too many cooks in the kitchen, like you said. Bengals, same thing. Chargers, I kind of like the Chargers. 57 million available. Mike Williams, heading out of town. You know what I mean? I feel like that could be a good fit as well. Dolphins, I don't think so. I think he might be familiar with that situation, being on the other side of the state.
Yeah. I think the Raiders are probably the best bet if they can figure out the salary cap. I think Arizona would be interesting. I just don't know how they would find the money at this point. With only $2 million available under current construction. Seattle and Oakland, or Las Vegas, redacted. Yeah, Las Vegas or Seattle will probably be the best bets for a Chris Godwin. But I think under current construction, it's either Vegas or Tampa. I don't see him going anywhere else in terms of better fit, and that has the money to spend on him.
Tampa's just so hard for me because, you don't know what you're going to get at the quarterback position. If they don't get Jameis Winston, who is very familiar with Mike Evans and Godwin, like Kyle Trask is not enough. Like, you should not sign a long-term deal in Tampa Bay if Kyle Trask is going to be the quarterback. You know what I mean? Or I don't even know if Jimmy Garoppolo does it. If they bring in James G, like, I don't know if that's enough. I wouldn't, but I don't know if they commit to him long-term. Maybe that's just the deal they have to do, is just give him a lot of years and a lot of money.
100%.
All right. Next up, we've got Ron Rivera telling the Athletics Ben Standig that Washington has a tremendous amount of interest in re-signing contract wide receiver Terry McLaurin. what available quarterback out there, not just in free agency, but on the block as well, would give Terry the most opportunity for a booming 2022-23? The guy that's going to make us sing songs to our fantasy teams.
Let's see. The free agent quarterbacks in 2022. Okay. So Ben's retires. That doesn't matter.
Yeah. Here you go.
Okay. Let's go through. So actual options. Jameis, Teddy, Marcus, Mitch, and then we've got a bunch of other guys. I don't know. For Terry, he seems to be able to produce on a baseline with anybody. I think Jameis would be cool. I don't see him getting pried away from the Saints under current construction because he's kind of like break glass in case of emergency, and he's coming off that knee injury. So I don't think his market's super saturated. Marcus Mariota is just this like prayer for people at this point. I think he showed promise in Vegas as the backup, but I don't think he is a full-on starter as of right now. I think I have to see more from him to give him money to be a starter. But to be fair, I think most quarterbacks in the market are an upgrade over Taylor Heineke. I think Bridgewater and Garoppolo get into the murky. Well, I don't think Garoppolo's even a free agent, so he's off the table.
I also quarterbacks on the block too, because you have interest in Rodgers, you have interest in Wilson. The Commanders are going shopping for a franchise quarterback. I don't think that's what they're coming home with. I do feel like they're going to make a push at Russ. They're going to make a push at Aaron. They're going to swing and miss, because what they're going to be able to offer is not going to have a quarterback involved in return. That means those teams now have to hit the market or make another move, which I don't think that they're going to be interested in making one blockbuster deal. So they have to either sign a less than desirable talent in free agency or make another blockbuster deal for another quarterback in the league. I think that's too many moving pieces here. So while they want Rodgers and Wilson, I don't think they're coming home with it. I think their more realistic options are Wentz via trade, Garoppolo via trade, or some of these free agents that you mentioned. But honestly, if they don't come home with at least Garoppolo, Wentz, or I don't know, if they don't come home with either of those guys, I feel like McLaurin may be a sell candidate. And that's not because like he's not going to have that booming production. I actually could see a bit of regression here. Like his numbers have been really solid with bad quarterback play. Everyone was expecting a big surge this year because they were bringing in Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Ryan Fitzpatrick was creating a lot of buzz. And he's never had a quarterback like this before that can have that downfield threat added into the game plan. Well, none of these guys are really like that in free agency right now. Like Wentz made Michael Pittman a pretty competitive player for us in fantasy this year. He had very similar numbers to Terry McLaurin. So I could see, Wentz as a kind of a unilateral move for McLaurin's potential production growth. Like, I don't think it goes up. I don't think it goes down. But, Garoppolo, I'd say it goes down. Mariota, Bridgewater, even Winston, if they somehow did pry him from New Orleans and Tampa, because if he doesn't go back to New Orleans, I pretty much see Tampa as that next move for him because of the familiarity. So yeah, I actually think their options are pretty bleak here. Going all in, making that big splash potentially for Russ Wilson, sure, but you're going to have to probably give up, Chase Young, some firsts. They've said everybody's on the table. They've said Young's on the table, Gibson, McLaurin. We need that guy. Even if they went out and got Deshaun Watson somehow, if they landed him, he could be suspended 8 games. Who
knows when he's back on the field? 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because you get him doesn't mean that he's going to be readily available. I don't think the NFL is interested in that, saying like, oh yeah, Deshaun Watson, you brought us a lot of press. It wasn't the best. You're going to sit down for a little bit, son. You're going to pay your fine. So interesting situation, but I don't believe that there's a quarterback out there other than like the top guys that's going to pole vault like Terry McLaurin to the 100+ catch range, the over 1,250, 1,300 yards range, double-digit touchdowns. Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, he's great. He's fun to watch. He's an awesome player, big down the field burner, entertaining. But as far as like top level talent, he's going to be probably again in that Michael Pittman range, where Michael Pittman's moving up the boards. McLaurin might be moving down this season. Shames me to say it. I do own him in Dynasty. I don't want to lose him, but this may be an offseason where I move on from him if I don't get what I want. Not sure why I should say expect, because I don't think that they are going to get a top talent. But as far as what I'm looking for out of the quarterback position, I do think Marcus Mariota should be a starter this upcoming offseason, just based on the market. When you, we'll save that for a minute here because we're going to rank some of these quarterbacks here in a minute.
And before we move off of this topic, my one thing with Terry moving forward in this offseason is I think the Commanders have to take a quarterback this draft. Granted, there's not a whole lot of names that inspire me in this draft. I think there is value to be had in drafting a quarterback for this team. I think Heineke's still going to be employed by the football team, so they could kind of walk him out if they don't feel super confident in a rookie quarterback. But there is some genuine talent in this class. Kenny Pickett has small hands, but I've been hearing great things about Malik Willis and Matt Corral. So if there's any time to go for a quarterback, this year is not the best one if you want to compare to the last 2 years. But the Commanders don't have time to be cute. This is the year they should probably try and get their guy if they feel confident enough in one of these rookie quarterbacks. Because with their roster construction, they're about a quarterback away from being competent and competitive. And that's the biggest thing in the NFL. For all of the free agent quarterbacks you could ever think of signing, the best bet or value you're ever going to get from the position is a rookie scale contract. It's why the Chargers are in a very advantageous position. It's why the Bengals project to be so good the next 3 to 4 years. And it's why the Chiefs now that have been this juggernaut over the last half decade now look a little bit more human because that $7 million cap hit went to 37. It changes the entire dynamic of what football teams can be. So if Washington wants to be as good as they possibly can be, stop playing around in free agency, get serious, scout some guys, and bring your dude in. And if it's not this year, bring in Marcus Mariota.
If I was gonna say that they could draft one of those guys, and this is under the assumption that again they go shopping for a top guy, they come home with nothing. All right, cool. Go out and sign Marcus Mariota, very team friendly deal. He'll take it, guaranteed. Any team friendly deal where he has the opportunity to compete to start, he'll do it. So you add him in, and you go draft Malik Willis.
Exactly.
Or whatever guy they like. I think Malik Willis would be amazing on that roster. But if they like Matt Corral, go out and get him. If they like Pickett, go out and get him. You know what I mean? Like just make a stand, plant your flag, and take your guy. I think they would be just fine in either of those scenarios. And again, I don't think that signing Marcus Mariota would hurt them more than what they had with Taylor Heineke as a starter. And also too, like we have to keep in mind that Heineke wasn't a starter. Like Ryan Fitzpatrick played 16 snaps and then ended his season. Like that was not their plan. He was the contingency plan, but this would be a very similar situation to that. I feel like if they, again, went shopping for a big name, didn't come back with much. Yeah. All right. Looks like the Saints will try heavily to bring back Jameis Winston. If they can't bring him back, who's the next guy? Like who should be next on their list after Winston? I can't imagine either of us believe that Taysom Hill is just going to be given the team. Like I don't think that's the case.
So I just saw a name that I think would fit the Commanders if they can't actually get a guy in the draft. So just one aside, Tyrod Taylor. That's a big dude that I think could actually be serviceable with a team like the Commanders. If the Saints can't get Jameis Winston, it's Jameis or bust for me. There's nobody else on the market that I see as a better option than Jameis Winston under current construction, unless his knee injury just derails whatever it was that he was over the last 8 games last year. And even then the spurts from the year when they had Breeze. Jameis is that guy. He's not going to be the field general, risk-averse Aaron Rodgers type, but he has a cannon. And if you have weapons, Jameis will put up statistics, and he wasn't turning the ball over at the clip that he was last year. So New Orleans not only has the arm in Jameis, and they seem to have figured out the mind and the eye training a bit more. He got LASIK, and he's not turning the ball over like Tampa Jameis. And so if that New Orleans system kind of aided and abetted him to being a better quarterback in terms of viewing the field and being less risk-averse, I don't think they have a better option in going away from him. If Tampa were to woo Jameis Winston away from the Saints, it's getting real dark out there. Their cap space situation really sucks. Their team is pretty old in comparison to the rest of the league. For my taste, in this transitionary period, they're not going to get a guy where they want to move forward with. Taysom Hill will probably be cut in the next 3 years if things don't go correctly. I like Mitch Trubisky. I think he got a really raw deal out in Chicago. I know he's not perfect. I know he is not a guy that you want to hitch the wagons to, per se. But under a guy like Matt Nagy, he had, 2 or 3 winning seasons? And from what Matt Nagy showed us the last two years, he had at least 2 winning seasons under Matt Nagy.
There's an 8-8 season.
Yeah. So he had like 1 winning season. He was like a 500 quarterback beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
You put Mitch in a system that's it's the Saints system is as institutional in the NFL as about any aside from the Patriots. So if you can plug and play Mitch Trubisky, I think he gives you enough upside, and his arm talent isn't terrible. He should be able to commandeer an NFL offense that is about as plug and play as it possibly can get. Mariota has better upside, but if they can't get Jameis, I like Mitch in the spot for a year or two.
Okay. Dark horse name I'm going to throw out there, Teddy Bridgewater.
He was there.
He was there. He's familiar with the team. Maybe not the new system because they're going to probably have a new system in place, but he started for them 2 years ago. We went 5-0 in that stretch where Breeze was out. But what I value most in those 5 games is the production of Michael Thomas, their best receiver. He had a high percentage catch rate, multiple touchdowns. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think it was like over 50 some odd catches through 5 weeks. Like he was solid. He was very good, and they were able to work together. So I definitely like his name on the table. I hear you. Definitely Mitch could be an option, but I feel like Mitch is like Taysom Young, but with an arm. You know what I mean? And Taysom Young's legs are just way, way better. Mitch is not a run first type of guy. He's a runner that can extend the play. We'll get to more of Mitch here in a moment, but with the Saints, Winston, I like. Bridgewater, I like if you can't land Winston. And I don't necessarily hate Jimmy Garoppolo. I think Jimmy Garoppolo in that run game would work well. I would trust him to be able to get the ball to Alvin Kamara. And it just kind of solidifies that quarterback position where I have a pocket guy and I have a Taysom Hill guy as a gadget that I can kind of roll out as well. Jameis fits that mold as well. So I think that Jimmy would be a similar play there, but Jimmy's going to cost more. He's going to be heavier on the books for sure. So
I think
those would be my 3 top options for him: Winston, Bridgewater, Garoppolo.
I would have to agree with that. I'm a Mitch Trubisky truther to a certain extent. My bold prediction for the Bills panned out. I said the X factor is Mitch Trubisky. The more he's on the field, the worse they do, and it panned out. But in all seriousness, those picks make complete sense. I think if you can't bring in Jameis, the guy that was running the system last year, you go for a guy that can play with the pieces that you have in Teddy. And I do think that if they want to shout the money for Jimmy, he is a proven NFL starter. So he's probably better than he'd have to be better than Mitch. And my thing with the Saints as well is with Brady leaving the NFC South, if they can get a good enough quarterback, they can win that division.
Yeah, the whole thing's wide open. Saints, no quarterback. Panthers, no quarterback. Atlanta,
Matt Ryan.
They had kind of a quarterback.
The ghost Tampa of quarterback.
And Tampa Bay, no quarterback. I'm not going to sit there and say like, oh yeah, here comes Atlanta. Like I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? But let's move over to Mitch though. I mean, Mitch was already the next topic up. Is he still a starter in the NFL? Sounds like you're in.
It depends on the situation. Like there's plenty of teams that could use a guy like Mitch Trubisky. I think it depends on where their goals are, essentially. Do you want to win now? Do you want to kind of exist for some years while you're gathering talent and maximizing rookie scale contracts and just acquiring talent?
Right.
Mitch is not going to be leading a contending NFL offense again in his career. It's just not in the cards. He's not going to be signing in any situation that is going to be advantageous for him as a player. He could be a starter. It just takes a lot of things that are out of his control to make him a starter. But there are teams that I think you could plug him in and he's arguably better than the starter that they have in spot, especially like the Commanders. They brought in a Mitch. I think I have more faith in him than I do in a Taylor Heineke. But there's not a whole lot of spots where you could plug Mitch in and say he's the guy. Because
right now there's 7 teams that need a quarterback. Like they need a quarterback, and then there's another 3. Can't get my words out. That could just use an upgrade. So the 7 you're looking at are teams like Washington, Tampa, Pittsburgh, New Orleans. Miami is one of those teams that could upgrade. Let's see, moving along here. Indianapolis wants a new quarterback. That's not necessarily a full need, but they want a new quarterback. Denver, Cleveland, a team that could upgrade at the position. Carolina, and that's it. So that's quite a few teams here. There's only so many quarterbacks to go around. And as the offseason is going along here, it feels like some of these bigger names are having, or at least appearing like they're going to have less and less upside to leave their teams that they're on now. Rodgers, Wilson, even Garoppolo, San Francisco has kind of spoken up and saying, it may not be the move. So with the remaining quarterbacks, I want to rank these quarterbacks and see what we like here. So of these 6, we've got Mitch Trubisky, Jameis Winston, Teddy Bridgewater, Marcus Mariota, Carson Wentz, and Jimmy Garoppolo. Let's start with your bottom 3. So your 4 through 6, who are you looking at here?
Okay, so if we're talking 4 through 6, Mitch has to be 6, just based upon what his usage in Buffalo was and what we saw on the back end of his tenure in Chicago. I like his traits. I like who he is as a player. I just don't know if that can translate into any of the fits that we have, especially comparatively to the guys that are on this list. So him at 6 isn't so much an indictment of his talent. It's an indictment of the players around him and the fits that I see these players moving towards.
Sure. So I'm pretty close there with you. I don't have him at 6, but I have him close to that. Who's your next one?
My next one's probably I'd go Bridgewater at 5.
Okay.
And then I'd probably go Wentz at 4, personally. In terms, give me Mariota at 4. That's disrespectful to put Mariota over Wentz. Wentz has been a starter in the league for years now. So give me Mariota at 4, and then So
okay. All right. So we're very close. So I have Mitch at 5 and Bridgewater at 6, just vice versa. Yeah. And I go that just because I feel like Mitch can offer your playbook a little bit more creativity because he can run the play action a little bit better. Honestly, Bridgewater now to me, the legs are done. Like he's not a guy that's going to, he can run to extend a play, but it's more likely that he is going to run out of the way and throw the ball out of bounds than he is going to extend the play and prolong the drive. It's more likely that he won't turn it over and not hurt himself, but he's not going to give you anything special as far as like package and scheme wise. So I hold him at number 6 here. I have Mitch ahead of him because of that. Like Mitch, you can roll out. I've seen Mitch play at wide receiver, just all a bunch of random stuff. I have Winston actually at 4, and that's just because even with the LASIK last season, like I just wasn't impressed with what he could do with the weapons that he had. And even if he does come back to New Orleans, he still only has Mike Thomas and Alvin Kamara. I expect Alvin Kamara to go back up to like his similar usage or production level. Alvin Kamara with Taysom Young, it's not a good mix. It's not a good tandem. But at the same time, like we didn't see him do much with what he had. So I just don't value him in the same way. If he did go back to Tampa, I would probably have him at number 2 or 3. But right now, with the way it looks, probably going back to New Orleans, I just don't see him as being like that explosive guy. Has the downfield level arm, but Mike Thomas isn't like your downfield type of guy. He can make plays downfield, but he is so good in the intermediate and short passing game that they're still going to overload him there because I still feel like they'll want to keep the narrative as like, we're making Jameis make safe throws. We're just trying to win games, not pad stats. So let's transition to our 1 through 3. Where are you at for we'll just go with the top guy first.
So number 1 as of right now on my list in terms of quarterbacks on the free agent market. Or quarterbacks, if we're ranking all of these, I think Garoppolo has to be 1. His upside, I think, is less than a guy like Jameis. I just like Jameis for the fact that even though he only played 7 games, the yards were down. He wasn't on like a 5,000-yard pace.
Right.
But he had like a 14-3 touchdown interception ratio. And I think that matters for me. Jameis is hitting guys. He was throwing 2 touchdowns a game on average. And if you can get that out of any quarterback, that's a plus. And so that's without a Michael Thomas in that offense, which surprised me. I thought he would probably struggle a bit more in the touchdown department without Mike Thomas. But Jimmy's 1 for me right now, just based upon what teams are looking for quarterbacks and what Jimmy can do as a quarterback. I think he gets a bad rap in terms of like what the Niners have been able to do, grand scheme. But whenever he's been healthy and the team around him's healthy, they've been a perennial Super Bowl contender. And there's no other way to describe that. At 2, give me Jameis. I like Jameis over Wentz because while Carson Wentz is a higher pedigree player, Carson Wentz could have been an MVP if it weren't for his knee going sideways, thanks to the Los Angeles Rams. Moving forward, I just see Jameis having more value. I think while Jameis did tear his ACL, science only improves over time. The surgeries that we see taking place on knees nowadays compared to 20 years ago, it's essentially clockwork. These rehab routines are down to a science. Everything's just so regimented. I think Jameis will be fine moving forward. And I just see more upside out of his arm, regardless of what team he's going towards. And from what Wentz has shown me over the last 2 years, I don't know if the decision making is really going to be leaning me in either's favor. So I have Wentz at 3 just because until he proves it to me again, I'm not going to bet on the guy. Obviously, he's a starter in the league if he's given the opportunity. But for as much money as he's paid and for as average as he has played, I don't think there's much value in a Carson Wentz unless he gets cut and signs on a team-friendly deal. Under current construction, I'd much rather have Jameis in the discount than Carson at whatever his cap hit actually is. He's getting paid $20+ million a year.
Think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just for the whole economics of your NFL team, having Carson Wentz at quarterback is not, you're much better off having a guy like Jameis on a cheaper deal. I'd even take Jimmy at what he's getting paid right now, because at least Jimmy stays on the field, and mentally, I think he's all the way there. I still am not convinced that Carson Wentz mentally has recovered from the Philly situation and even parts of this tenure in Indianapolis. He just hasn't been the same guy to a certain extent. Like, even after the knee injury, he was skittish, and it's not his fault. Mental health is a very delicate and serious thing. But if I'm ranking the quarterbacks, it gets brought up in the discussion at least.
Right. So I do have Wentz just ahead of Garoppolo. I do have him at the top of the list. To me, it's about his deep ball. Like when we're looking at fantasy and value, I feel like Wentz and Garoppolo both make bad decisions. Like they both make bad throws. That's going to be consistent. Wentz does still add a little bit more with his legs still, even after the knee issue. Was fine getting out of the pocket this season. It's just that he makes bad decisions. He's trying to make a crazy play that's not there. Like, it happens all the time. But I feel like Wentz's availability on a new team, there could still be some value to be had here. Like if he went to a Denver somehow, if he landed in Tampa Bay somehow, like if he gets surrounded by like really good passing weapons, we could see, the numbers potentially stay where they're at or even go up a little bit. Excuse me. With the Eagles, he didn't have like A1 receivers. With the Colts, not really the same, but he still got quite a bit out of Michael Pittman. He had a really good season with Michael Pittman still. Don't have elite tight ends there. He just had a running game that would, kept his numbers, respectable, right? Yeah. So if he goes somewhere like a Denver where he has, Javonte Williams and these receivers and Sutton and Judy and Hamler and Patrick, like even two reliable tight ends in Alberto and Noah Fant, like that would be a very good situation. And I would probably have to, correct my overall rankings of Wentz and quarterbacks in general. I have Garoppolo behind him because he's a very good intermediate and short passer, but the deep ball isn't there. He's not a guy that's going to, put up a ton of yards every game. Passed for about 3,800 this season with missing 3 games. So he probably should have passed for about 4,000 yards this season, which would have been his best year. He's surrounded by weapons. So if he goes in a situation where it's less than, he's probably falling even farther on this list. But I do think that he still could potentially stay with San Fran, where he was QB 13 this year, had a nice little productive season, was a QB 2 in fantasy. So I do hold him right behind him. I think with Wentz potentially on the move, he could land somewhere where, he just has better weapons. And in fantasy, he could be a bit of an upgrade. But he does have to stay on the field as well. Like you had mentioned, that knee injury. Yes. Played every game this season. Pretty impressive for a Carson Wentz. And then at third, I have Marcus Mariota because I think he's the treasure trove here in this offseason. Like I'm getting Ryan Tannehill vibes from Marcus Mariota this season. Go back and watch the tape against the Chargers where he filled in for Derek Carr. Derek Carr has been very well. Derek Carr has not had injuries in the past 2 seasons. He pulled a groin in that game, so they needed the backup. This year, he played in every game. That last season was the only time that Carr was taken off the field. And he had a rushing touchdown. He rushed 9 times for 88 rushing yards, and he threw for over 200 yards and had 2 passing touchdowns. He did have an interception. It was the Chargers who I believe, if memory serves, their secondary was Swiss cheese at the time. But that's neither here. They were missing what's his name? Who was hurt?
Casey Hayward was on the downspin because that was 2 years. That was Herbert's rookie year. So we had Casey Hayward. Right. We just traded Desmond King, Chris Harris. I think we had Chris Harris that year as well. Our secondary was in shambles. Derwin was off the field.
It was bad.
Real bad.
But regardless, like you saw a lot of upside from Mariota. He was making tight throws. He was running the triple formation, and he was getting designed runs. You know what I mean? Fast forward to this season, you don't have that. there was no opportunity for him to come in and pass. They did use him, I believe, because of the work that he did in the offseason and what he showed them in the previous year. He did get designed run touches. Like I think he may have had maybe one rushing touchdown or something, something where he was used inside the 5. But regardless, I feel like he is someone that's going to get that money this offseason, or at least get that opportunity to come in and compete, because there's so many opportunities. There's 7 teams for sure that need a quarterback. And as the days go on, like we're saying here, the opportunities for these big names are starting to dwindle. And some of these guys may already have kind of like self-determined opportunities that they're just going to, like a Winston or like a Garoppolo maybe staying. We just don't know. So interesting that we the way that we ranked him there. I like it. It sounds like we agree on the top and at the bottom. In the middle, it's a little monkey.
I'll flip on the Carson Wentz and Jimmy, because I think I was looking at this more so to like actual like football roster construction in terms of like my rankings. For fantasy, Carson Wentz is at the top. He can do more than a Jimmy can. But I think if I'm talking just general football, it skews it a bit differently. But for fantasy purposes, Carson has to be the guy, just because he's younger, he's healthier if you go tit for tat on the terms of their careers so far. Jimmy's had knee injuries. Carson's had knee injuries. Carson rolled both of his ankles and still played. So,
and I think both of them are their value is determined by what you surround them with. Jimmy has been surrounded by talent since he's been in the league. With the Patriots, now with the 49ers, there's always been talent around him. Carson, I don't feel it's the same. This season, he had Jonathan Taylor, potentially the best player he's played with in the NFL. Is that crazy?
No, not at all. I think that's a very fair estimate. His best receiver outside of this year was Alshon Jeffrey. So take that as you will. Like that is,
I love AJ. That is Carson Wentz's legacy. I love AJ, but I wish he got a better deal than he did in the NFL. That's for sure. Sure. All right, let's move on here. We got a couple topics left, and we're going to head out and enjoy our Sundays. Next up, we got Jarvis Landry putting the ball in the Browns' court, as the media is terming it. But he is not going to restructure his contract. He is not taking a pay cut to stay with the Browns. That's what the Browns need, and that's what the Browns are asking for. I don't know why. They've got plenty of cap space, but buy or sell Jarvis Landry as a Browns week 1 starter this year.
I'm a sell. I think Jarvis has put his foot in the ground, and one thing that Cleveland has shown as an organization that they don't like is players being opinionated and putting their foot in the ground. Last time we saw this from
really
a
nice about
it was OBJ, but OBJ's uncle or dad was out there posting this video to Twitter. Jarvis is out here. I respect the shit out of Jarvis for this. The thing with Jarvis Landry is he was a premier talent at the position. He wasn't top end, but he was really good in Miami. Moves on to Cleveland. He was
Jay Cuddy got him paid. Cutler got him that money. I love it.
100%. And so Jarvis was out here doing everything he could for the team. He's played injured. He's been on the field for most of his tenure. And for them to ask him to restructure his deal, I'm not going to say it's fully offensive, but after what just happened with Odell Beckham Jr., why the hell would I cut money off the top on my end so Baker can make me look worse? Cut me loose and I'm going to make more money. So I if they're not going to give in to him not wanting to restructure the deal, I could see him in any uniform next year. I could care less.
Oh yeah.
For Jarvis himself, I'm selling personally. I don't trust Cleveland as an organization, and I think Jarvis is a competent enough player and good enough player to start on at least at the wide receiver 2 on most teams in the NFL.
Agreed. And there's a lot of teams that need a receiver this offseason. If Godwin were to leave Tampa, I'd like him to go to the Bucs, and I think the Eagles are on the table regardless at any time. They need somebody. I think he'd be a very good complement to Mike Evans or Devontae Smith. So I don't think that he's going to be there. I think it's definitely a sell. Not going to be a starter for them next season. It doesn't really make sense to me. You have OBJ leave, and everything that I've seen from Landry and his camp has been very cordial. Love Cleveland. Want to be here long term. Love this place. Love the fans. But no pay cuts, no restructure. Like it's very simple. And like you mentioned with the narrative of OBJ this past offseason, Jarvis campaigning to try and keep essentially for OBJ to shut up. Like they're best friends. The organization is trying to use Landry as a chip to calm OBJ, to keep him around. Probably did so enough to longer to the point than where he was. Because like you said, it was his dad or his uncle showing video clips of OBJ running screaming down the sidelines wide open. No one's even looking his way. I get that. I get that frustration, but the approach to that is probably more on the Jarvis side where he's like, hey, want to be here. It's a great place to be. Love the energy. Love the vibe of Cleveland. Fans are great. We have a product that can win. Go get me a quarterback. Don't give me less pay. Killing me.
Browns are going to brown. That's the way I see this. Like it's just unfortunate. I feel bad for Jarvis. I hope he can find a home, because if Cleveland's not going to do him right,
their fans. I feel bad for their fans. Like, they had like everything that they needed, and they committed to Baker Mayfield this season. Should not have been the case. They should have tried to retool the quarterback position. Honestly, since his rookie season, like that season where he came in and filled in for Tyrod, he looked pretty good. He has not looked that good since then. Just not the case.
If they're letting him go, I guess Donovan Peoples-Jones and Rashard Higgins are just the next Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, and we just don't know it yet, because it's going to get dark out there. This guy go.
They're not, man. If they're not going to bring back Jarvis, they need to bring back Dearness Johnson. That's their secret weapon, bro.
That's a guy I'd love to see the Chargers try and get as a nice compliment to Eckler. I've seen him in some mock free agencies.
Eckler owners would hate that. Dearness Johnson can ball, bro.
He's a stud. He's a stud.
He is. I remember that week Chubb got hurt. Or maybe both of them were hurt. I think they were missing everybody, and I spent like all of my fob on them. I think literally out of $100, I had like 60 something left, and I spent it all on him, and that bought me one win. That bought me one win with his 30 fantasy points that he put up, or something crazy.
I was in a league. There was that 2-keeper league that Austin and I joined this year, and it was the week Mostert went down. We had $100 fab for the year, and some dude threw $100 at Elijah Mitchell. He just threw all of it, and we were like, okay, man, like, hey, we respect it.
11 games, 1,100 yards. You can't hate that. That's money well spent.
There's an IR spot. Somebody dropped Kareem Hunt. I was like, I'm throwing $45 at this guy regardless. If he comes back, great. I'm not winning this year anyways. Just I need talent on the roster. But yeah, Fab's
and
fun.
You could potentially keep him if that's the case. So not a bad.
I already have the keepers. I picked up Cam Akers off of waivers before like playoffs started. I was like, you know what? My roster's dead. I had AJ Brown, DeAndre Swift, everybody.
Right.
It was called sophomore slump for a reason. Everybody got hurt for some reason. But I got Akers and DeAndre Swift for my keepers next year. So I'm just buckling up and going for the ride.
Yeah, those people not holding on to those guys, big mistake. I did the same thing. I might keep DeAndre Hopkins because someone left him on IR, and I might keep him.
Yep.
We have like really crazy keeper rules that are just like, they're dumb. Like, they're just not even good anymore. Our rules have not developed or evolved with the NFL. So like, you can only keep 2 players but you can't keep 2 players that are both in the top 25 of total scoring. But when I started in this league, quarterbacks did not dominate the top 25 of total scoring. So now there's like, I don't know, half of that, like half of the scores are all quarterbacks in the top 25. So call it like 13 or 14 are, quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's probably somebody like, I don't know, not Cam Akers or like DeAndre Hopkins because they got hurt, but like a top point getter that you'll be able to keep because all of these quarterbacks are in here. It's absolutely nuts. So I'm like, DeAndre Hopkins got hurt. I'll keep him with one of my top guys. Fuck it.
Hopefully there's no funny business in this league, just because I know there's some it's just a standard ESPN keeper league. So first 2 rounds are just your keepers, then you draft after that. But I've heard of some keeper leagues where it's like, if the guy doesn't play in the regular season, you can't keep him. But I was like, I'm picking up Cam Akers like week 12. So if I can't keep Akers, I'm just going to dip out because my next best option is either Lamar or CEH. Well, I'd keep AJ Brown if that were the case. But
yeah.
If I can get Akers and Swift, it's lock it in. And AJ Brown's not a bad consolation, but running backs are king in my eyes.
They are, at least for now. We'll see.
Yeah,
you got to have at least one good one for sure. But and that one I'm going to wind up keeping probably Hopkins and Tyreek Hill. So
you can't argue that.
Can't hate on that. But it's also February, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Plenty of time.
Last up here. Yeah, exactly. Last up here, we got Mike Williams talk. What team is going to break the bank for Mike Williams? So we are looking at someone that is spending and then someone that has a need, not just like a good fit, but someone that's going to give this dude, the Brinks truck. Back it up.
No one is, because we're going to franchise tag him. If Telesco lets this guy walk in free agency, I would be very surprised. So the biggest thing for me, the Chargers, this is the window. If we are ever with Herbert going to make this push to be a playoff team, Super Bowl contender, quote unquote, this draft and offseason will be paramount. We have the quarterback, we have the running back, we have the receivers already. Jalen Guyton, and I forget the other one's name, but we also have Donald Parham, who's probably going to come back on a free agent deal. We can upgrade tight end in the draft. Jared Cook is off the books. We need to draft for defense. Yeah, we love Jared. He dropped a lot of passes this year.
He didn't get enough usage there, man. Like for following Joe Lombardi, like I felt like he'd get a lot more usage.
He was really hot and cold. He would have big games and he would drop some passes. It was just push and pull. But Telesco, his
Josh
job
Palmer was the other guy. I think.
Yes, I love Josh Palmer. I think he's going to develop really nicely. He's not ready to be the two whatsoever, and I don't want to invest a top 3 round draft pick on a receiver this year. It's a great class, but we have Mike Williams right here. He's a player that Herbert has grown to love. I think it's just it's misleading and just kind of misguided to not tag him for what the price will be on the cap hit, because it's 1 year. It's one more year of giving Herbert all of his weapons, because we saw this year he had a year or two with everybody else around him, 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns total. He is a premier talent in the league. And if we want to be a competitive football team, our offense is not our problem. Invest a bit in the offensive line. We already have Slater, Lindsley, and some other pieces around there, but we need a D tackle. We need secondary help, and we need to give Kenneth Murray some support at linebacker. So in a perfect world, Mike Williams comes back on the tag, and then we figure out what we're going to do next offseason, because receivers come out of the draft every year. There's always going to be talent there. Receiver is a very, very deep position. So I expect them to tag him. If we're not tagging Mike Williams, for all the Chris Godwin to the Las Vegas Raiders, I think Mike Williams to the Raiders makes a lot of sense. They are a team that wants to win right now. And Mike Williams, when healthy, is, I say, a top 5 deep threat in all of football. When healthy. And the thing about this year was he actually expanded the route tree a bit, which actually inspired me to want to keep him. Because if we were just going off of the last 3 to 4 years of production, he was a vertical spacing threat. Anthony Lynn did not help him in that. I think Lombardi unlocked Mike Williams to a certain extent, but Williams wasn't just this go route, go up and get it guy this year. He was cutting across the field. He was diversifying the route tree. Jacksonville is a team that would be desperate enough to empty the bag for a Mike Williams, like Brinks truck that guy. The Jets could be a team to try and bring him in. They do have some talent there with Corey Davis last year. It makes it a little more hard to believe. Beyond that, I think Vegas makes the most sense if the Chargers don't tag him, but I would not be surprised if come around free agency, Jacksonville and the Seahawks are in play. Because Seattle wants to add more offensive help. And I know DK fills a similar role to Mike, but you throw Lockett in the slot, and Mike has shown the ability to be more than just that deep route guy. And I think
he definitely has, especially early on this season. You were seeing him, and I felt like that was when the majority of like his like crossing routes and all the underneath stuff was, at least when it was working. I felt like he kind of slowed down throughout the season with that expanded role. But earlier in the year, he was getting moved around all over the place. It was awesome. As an owner of him in fantasy, I was like, man, this is going to be a great year. And then it's kind of tailored off a little bit. As far as like other fits, I agree with you with those teams that you mentioned. The only other ones I'm going to throw in are Detroit and Chicago. While they're not like at the very top of the cap, they're both in the top 12. I also think that they could make more money available for them as well, even than what they have or are willing to offer, because they have tremendous needs. Detroit speaks loudly to me because he gets to play indoors in the rough and tough NFC Central or NFC North, I should say. Man, I just can't see him with the Jaguars. I don't know. I believe you on the tag. Like I think the tag is probably in play. They have the second most cap space, but like you said, there's a lot of other holes to fill here. And I don't know. Mike Williams, he's been relatively healthy. I don't know. I feel like he could have that like a looming injury. Like I don't like predicting injuries, but when you see someone who has like that perfect bill of health, there's always the time to come. Like, I don't know. That's tough for me with that tag, because he's gonna demand $19 million. Yeah, damn. Like, do you think he gets more than that a season? Elsewhere?
It depends on who's trying to sign him. There's a lot of teams that are kind of desperate for a receiver, and if they're not in on Godwin, because Godwin's going to have his pick. Godwin's going to get the money, and he's going to choose where he's going. I think Mike Williams is more in the camp of most money, offered, he's probably going to go. He does not
That's
have
what I'm
that
thinking.
track record, which is why I
Right.
think the tag is something that I think would be smart to do in this offseason. Because as a Chargers fan, we've been waiting for this Mike Williams to arrive since he came in the draft. Like, genuinely. We got the one full year where he finally realized the full potential. And I just like to give Herbert that one last year with Mike and let Palmer develop as that wide receiver 3 alongside Keenan and Mike. And then we could bring in somebody else if Palmer hasn't developed to fill that wide receiver 2 or slot in at the 3 coming into 23-24.
Yeah, like I said, given his track record of like really clean health, the only season he's missed more than 2 games was his rookie season.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like for him, he's playing with house money. Like, he has to go out and get his, because I'm not saying he should expect an injury. I'm just saying, like, they happen in the NFL all the time.
Especially
like,
for receivers.
Yeah, and look at just go and look at the first round of any fantasy draft. This player's been hurt. This player's been hurt. This player's been hurt. Like, everyone gets hurt. Even the guys that you're taking at the very top have had time where they've missed games, where they've missed action because of injury, because that's what the league produces. So I feel like for him, like, this is the time to get it, man. Like, and he's also, how old is he? 25, 27.
Yeah, he's on the older spectrum. Yeah.
There may not be another big deal for him on the other side of this, even after the tag. You know what I mean? Because if he comes back and they do draft a guy, and it's a big year for Eckler, it's a big year for Allen type of thing, like, he could put up similar numbers or potentially still even less, and then may not have that leverage after the fact. So I think he's got to go all in. If he does go all in, gets the deal, and they want to tag him instead, like, he kind of gets the he's got his people working for him. They get the numbers, whatever. But sorry, we're halted in our tracks. You've been tagged. Hold out. He's not, I'm not saying, like, I'm not talking about like Lev Bell hold out, but like hold out till week 1.
So the thing with Mike Williams is, as a person, I would love to go see him go somewhere else and make his money. As a Chargers fan, I think the team is going to need him in the immediate future for next year, if we're going to be the best possible version of the Chargers. So if he gets tagged, I could see him probably holding out until week 1. I don't think it would be a huge stressor on the team. It's not like Keenan Allen's holding out. Keenan Allen is the receiving offense on the team. What Keenan Allen does allows Mike Williams to be Mike Williams to a certain degree, as opposed to a guy like Mike Evans doesn't predicate what Chris Godwin does. They act outside of themselves. But Keenan Allen's gravity really helps Mike Williams. And I think if Mike Williams were to get paid and go to a team as a true wide receiver 1 in the slot where he would probably be with some of these teams, I don't think it translates immediately. And I think it looks like a bad deal, at least in the early parts of the deal. Because athletically, he's a top tier talent. He is fast. He's huge, can outjump anybody damn near. But we'll see how it plays out. If he does walk in free agency, it is what it is. Tom Telesco is a pretty good general manager. I think he's gotten a pass over the last 2 years with Slater and Herbert being the 2 top picks in the last couple of drafts. But he just needs to get better in free agency. And if Mike's going to leave, I want to at least bring somebody in on the fringes that'll actually return some value of what he was able to do over the last.
There's a market for it. There's a market for it.
There's plenty of guys that we can get for cheaper than what Mike Williams' tag will be. So the Charger fan in me would love Mike Williams. It's less turnover for Herbert going into the year 3, which I think will be better off for our chances offensively. But if we can get a guy that's going to give us 85% of Mike Williams and Josh Palmer can develop, and we actually improve on the defense in a way that's going to be significant and substantial, he can walk. But I think he's going to
let's say he walks. Who would you rather have? Allen Robinson, Juju Smith-Schuster, or Chris Godwin?
I would love to have Chris Godwin on the Chargers. I don't want to pay Chris Godwin. That's the problem.
Okay.
Chris Godwin's going to command a lot of money. And that the thing was, too, if Davante Adams doesn't get tagged, people were like, Davante Adams to the Chargers. I'm like, that'd be fucking sick. Trust me. Be great. I don't want to pay a receiver $25, $30 million a year. It does not make sense to me. Davante's a great talent, and there's nobody that I would rather have than him on a team. But under construction, he doesn't make sense. Keenan's making top money. Out of those names you mentioned, I think Juju would be a really cool fit. I think Robinson would be cool as a vertical spacer. I don't know if he has the burners that a Mike Williams has, but A-Rob or Juju would be cool. I'd like Juju because he's cheaper and he's younger, and I think he could learn some stuff from Keenan. I do think he has the potential to be a top he's at least a wide receiver 2 in fantasy whenever he's alongside a top build receiver. Whenever he was with Antonio Brown, people were like fiending for that guy for the larger part of the time. I drafted Juju high in one of my drafts after the AB years, and it hasn't panned out yet. But as a wide receiver too, Juju has proven that he is a premier talent in that slot. So for the price, if I had to rank him, Godwin's 3, just based upon how much it's going to cost the team to bring him in. I think it hurts us defensively. And if we're being hurt defensively, we're in the same spot we've been in. And I'd go Robinson 1, Juju 2, Godwin 3. Okay. So I think Robinson probably takes a pay cut, at least for maybe he takes more of a prove it deal for a 1 year, and then
I think so.
Takes a 1 year for cheaper, and then gets a bigger deal afterwards.
I also just believe that, okay, A-Rob's going to get paid less, but he is going to prove it. You know what I mean? Like,
you give Allen Robinson, Justin Herbert, we're having a completely different conversation next offseason. He's probably at the top of the list. He is that talented. He's put up wide receiver 1 caliber seasons with Blake Bortles, Mitch Trubisky, you name it.
Not all Justins are created equal. I get it. I know.
No, Justin, you're number 1 in TMSM's book. Don't worry.
Fields is far behind, that's for sure. All right, this has been a long one, but a good one. But we are going to head out for the day. Very good stuff, sir. Let everybody know where they can find you on the Twitter machine and anything that you're working on. Let them have it.
Sweet. Thanks for having me on, Justin. As you guys know, my name's Devin. I'm half of the Makeshift Managers podcast. Austin couldn't make it today, but you can find us weekly on Twitter and YouTube live streaming at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can find us on Twitter at TMSM Podcast and on YouTube at the same thing, TMSM Podcast. We are live Mondays at 4 p.m. weekly, and you can catch me on the Halftime app. I'm trying to be on there at 7 p.m. on Mondays. Austin's schedule is a little more stringent, so he might not be with me on Halftime. And that's about it. I'm working on some articles here and there. Haven't published any because, I'm a little too perfectionist. I'm very critical of my writing. So who knows? You might be able to find some of that on Halftime in the near future. But beyond that, that's about it. Pleasure being on, Justin. Thanks for having me.
Yep. As always, doors always open, sir. Pleasure to have you on. We'll get you back. We'll get you back soon here. Hope everyone's enjoying their off season. Take care, be well, be good. And if you can't do all that stuff, then be good at them. All right. Take care. Be well. We'll see you.